this section, 4.4, we're going to talk about SQL. SQL is this really important tool for many companies to use to sort their data. Just think about in the past practices that we have done in this course, all of the data was actually saved in the CSV format. But as a company, it's very hard to save all the data in CSV because of the limitations that you get from CSV. Therefore, companies typically will save their data into a SQL server. Right? As a data scientist, you will go to the SQL server. Typically, it's already set up for you. Then you log in. Then you get, write some SQL queries and get the data that you need for your analysis. And then save that into a CSV. Then you can do your statistical analysis, then create a model using sklearn, NumPy. So SQL is considered as relational DB. That means the structure of the tables and structure of the database is already preset, predefined. So think of table as one CSV or as one spreadsheet, right? That you have columns and rows, and then that structure, right, is already preset for you. So when you get new data, say every day you get some new data, you want to save it to this existing table, you have to follow the rules, you have to follow the data type, you have to follow the table structure, right? So that's why it's called structured data. And then the relational part is really just about how you can link, right, the tables, two tables by this some sort of keys. So primary key, think of as primary key as index, is pretty much the index for a table, right? And then if you have the common ID or common key in two tables, you can use this field to join, right? To connect the two tables and then grab the things that you need from both tables. So if you're really familiar with like Excel's VLOOKUP, then you can think of that as almost like VLOOKUP, right? Or pandas, merge, right? pd.merge, right? So it's pretty much a similar thing. So let's get started, right? Go ahead and use this link and download SQLite Studio. So this is a GUI. We're going to be using this in this section. I mean, SQL can be anything, right? It has many types of SQLs. We have, we can use PostgreSQL, right? Postgre or SQLite. In this section, we're just going to use SQLite, but they're actually very, very similar. So if you know one, then the rest will be, very, very easy for you. So let's, just focus on SQLite using this GUI for now, which is like user interface. So once you download this, right, through that link, then you'll see something like this. So so as a data scientist, typically you wouldn't ask to set up this, right? So it's already a server that's been set up for other, by data engineers and other teams. So you just need to go in and log into the database. So typically what you see, right, on the left-hand side, you see like, all these like databases, right? You have like test and test 0 and test 2, right? So each is actually a database. And then if you just expand this database, you can actually see the tables. That means, CSV, right? A DF, think of as data frame or CSV. And in here, you can actually see two things, right? Two tables. One is called physician. The other is called, say, procedure, right? So you have two tables in this database called test, right? I will save this so that you can play with it later. And then, but I mean, the setup is pretty easy if you want to. If you have the CSV, you can just go in here, database, and then create add a database and then just follow it through. And also under tools, you can export it or import it from a CSV, right? If you have a CSV, you can just import it through this link. But typically it's not required for you. You're not required to do this step, right? So say it's already set up for you and then you just want to write some SQL queries, right? So the first thing we want to do is let's look at this table, right? So this physician table have two columns. You just keep expanding this. You have the ID, you have the specialty. And then quick thing you can do, right, you can actually look at some of the previews, right? I mean, there are many, many things you can do, but you can look at the previews, by doing like this, right? Select star from physicians, right? So SQL, remember, it's you have to follow the rules, right? So by using this is like select statement, you have to always select the columns that you want to display, and from this is the table that you need to specify. So what if we just run this whole thing, right? And then here's the button. You can see ID specialty, right? You can see, okay, so physician ID 0 is a general surgery, 1 is unknown, 2 is a say family practice. So this is like telling you for this ID, for this physician ID, what's the domain, right? What's the specialty for this particular physician? So you have a list, right, with 2 columns. Think of this as like, yeah, a DF for CSV, right? So then, say the other one, right, is a procedure. You can expand it. It has 4 columns. You have like physician ID, procedure code, procedure, number of patients. You're like, yeah, it's interesting. Let's look at it, right? The same way we're selecting. So this start means everything. I want to select everything from this table. You can look at it. Okay, so physician 0. ID 0 is like you have many few rows because the same physician can have many procedures, right? It has procedure code and procedure, like this is like the description of procedure, and then the number of patients, right? So that makes sense, right? You can have, look at this one, right? So, okay, great. So now we know the structure of the data, right? The database and then the tables, right? We have 2 tables. We can do a quick thing, right? So let's say what if I want to see from, remember, the physician table is to give you the ID and then also the specialty, right? So I can do something like, I want to look at the specialty, right? And then the count of physicians or ID, right? So, and then from here, from my table, and then I want to group it by specialty, right? So you can actually do it this way. So you highlight it, right? You can have many queries in here, highlight it, and then just click on run. Okay, so now you can actually see, this is just a count, right? So I'm saying, okay, addiction medicine, I have 8 physicians, and then allergy, right? I have like all these things, right? So, and I can actually name this because it says count ID, I don't want that. So I'll just maybe call this as a count physician count, right?